Perfect. Make you guys a little louder. Okay, so did you get your question or what? What are we waiting for here?
Oh, you weren't serious about that?
No.
Okay.
Could have been. Should have been.
Are there any on Patreon right now? Or
I didn't do any. So we're just pulling from the forum or an old Patreon post.
Patreon ones get picked pretty clean.
Yeah, they do. We're definitely due for a new one, but just...
I'm literally, as we're talking, I'm reading that damn question about you and where you get your lumber from in Colorado.
See? There it is. Yeah.
I'm like, oh, here, this could be promising.
This would be a good one.
You didn't think you made that up, did you? Mark's a person of convenience.
I am a man of convenience, as they say.
Oh my god.
I'm just tired.
When did you guys get in last night?
Like 8:30. It wasn't that late, but man, it was about 11 and a half hours in the car with the kids to get there in one day, or to get back in one day. And man, they did great. I was really impressed.
Oh wow!
But meanwhile, everyone's exhausted.
Where was it in Snowbird, Alta? Where was it?
Snowbird.
Is it 11 hours to get to?
It is when you have two kids.
Okay,
so it's actually
stopping and stuff,
it's only about an 8-hour drive if you go straight through. But when you've got two little ones, you're stopping.
That's pretty good overhead, I guess.
Yeah.
Like if we went to my parents' house not too long ago, it's like a 5.5, 6 hour drive.
Mm-hmm.
But it took us like 9 something to get there.
Yeah. You're going.
You did better than we did.
You're almost going at like time and a half to get to a certain distance, but it's
even 8 sounds long. I don't remember. It's been so long since I made that drive.
Mm-hmm.
But it was winter.
We mapped it out. It was it's 8, and there's 2 routes you can go. There's more of a southern route that goes through the mountains here in Colorado, straight west, and then cuts north. We went north and then cut west. Ibit says that's the fastest way to go. So
yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, we actually survived it, but everybody's like beat. And of course, after a trip like that, which was not exactly a vacation, it was just, I like to say it was taking care of our kids in a more difficult place. And it's like a super stressful 4 days,
yes.
So we're just like, I don't want to do anything today. I really don't. But anyways, I see a question for Shannon. There's a sawmill question for Matt on 611. Did you see that one from Zach?
611. Oh, the date 611.
Yes.
Yeah, row 611.
I was like, there's that many rows in this?
There would be if we didn't clear them out once in a while.
Sure, I can answer this. This is not going to be that exciting, but yeah.
I'm going to go to the live page because we are actually live now. Once in a while.
Sure, I can answer this. This is not going to be that exciting.
Jeez.
Whoa, deja vu.
I know, seriously.
Suddenly I heard myself talking from 10 seconds ago.
I just had a stroke.
So guess what? I just found out from one of our commenters that I hit 400,000 subscribers on YouTube recently.
Yay!
So that's a thing.
Giveaway. What are you going to give away? Give away all your tools.
You know what? I give away something every month. So
Nobody knows.
Let's
just
call it
about that because it's not labeled.
Yeah, let's just call it the 400,000 giveaway. I want to do like a big celebration, 400,000 subscribers and other arbitrary goals. That'll be my memoir. Right? Okay. Good stuff. I don't put a whole lot of stock in that. Like to be alerted by someone watching the show kind of gives you an idea of how much I pay attention to those numbers.
I actually hit it. I got tired of people telling me, hey, you just hit this number. Yeah. Or how come your subscriber base is so low? Your stuff is good. I'm like, yeah, that's nice.
Because I suck. That's why.
I thought
you were going to say like, I hit 400,000 a long time ago.
Yeah.
Not even close. My YouTube channel is pathetic.
That was 2010 numbers, baby.
I don't know about that.
I was going to say maybe if I put a little bit more into it, but I don't.
You got to play the game, man.
You got to put a lot into it to like do that.
I'm surprised I have what I have because I don't put really much effort into it.
You have the benefit of like years.
I've got momentum.
But that doesn't apply because I've had a YouTube channel almost as long as Mark.
Right. I think I try a little harder. Than Shannon.
Niche.
Yeah, I think is what it comes down to.
You niche down too far.
Yeah. You niched away your numbers. All right.
That must be it.
Let's I think we're ready. So we got a Brusso ad to do here. It's a Patreon thing. Matt, you'll just do your what's on the bench on the fly. Did you put your topic in the top of the show?
Oh no, of course not.
Of course
I have
not.
some knife hinges over here. Should I like hold them up and do a little dance?
Sure. Why not? Okay, waiting for Matt.
Matt's such a girl. We're always waiting for him.
No, not what's on the bench.
Hey,
I want your
that's sexist.
your email question at the top. That's what I
You're
was
in
talking
there.
about.
Get out of the box.
Just do it. Even if I'm in the box, it doesn't matter.
Oh, I don't know. It sounds like locked or
You
something.
can't fit.
Come on, Matt.
You can't fit two of us in the box.
Ah,
It's 2017.
Jeez.
It's a Google Doc. You can edit it all at the
Get
same
out of the
time.
box.
oh.
I want to get in the
We're going to have
box.
to close out the Word doc and have someone else open it on the client server infrastructure. Come on.
What a dork. And he's supposed to be. He's younger than us. He should know how this stuff works.
Seriously, you'd fit
Hey,
in well.
you know what?
at
I'm
the
like,
job.
it's gonna be weird because like I'm like 2 decades behind you guys until next month, and then I'll be only 1 again.
Okay, that's exciting.
It's gonna be weird. I don't know if that matters. to
Speaking of
anybody.
arbitrary numbers,
hey, hey,
as you can see. All right.
your age is arbitrary.
On this
Go
show,
with it.
actually on this show,
Shut
it's
your
very
mouth.
the age is very important. That's the only reason we can talk down to Matt. It's because he's younger than us. All right. All right, let's do a stupid show, shall we?
It's
right.
stupid. That's for sure.
Oh, you know what? Let me thumb up this video so it gets a few more people.
Wow. I just killed a really juicy fly. There's blood all over this
Oh,
fly
isn't that the
swatter.
worst? Nicole
My
did one.
artisanal fly swatter is smeared with blood.
Yay! That's what it's supposed to do, though. Nicole actually killed a mosquito on her arm the other day, and it was like, and it got all the blood. And I'm just thinking, that is either another human or another animal's blood on her arm
Yep.
right now. How gross is that? You know?
That's nasty.
It is
That's
nasty.
really, when you think about that, wow.
Especially, it's like, oh, that's my neighbor's blood on there. Wonderful. Anyway,
You should
stupid.
take it back.
Yeah, here's your blood.
Here's a cup of blood.
Cup of blood.
Couple blood.
All right. Okay, I think we're ready.
And
Boring.
that's how you get on the cover of the Grant Ranch magazine, by sharing a cup of blood.
Yeah, baby. I can't believe that happened. It's hilarious.
Oh, you love it. You know you love it.
It's no, I don't love it. I actually like to
You
live
framed
in.
it. It's in the foyer. as
I
people
like to
come in.
live in obscurity, and
Hi, welcome to our house. Have you seen our
Walk
cover?
in, it's a whole like stack of them. Please take 1 or 2.
yes. For the next year, I'll be giving them out anytime someone walks in the door. A Jehovah's Witness comes to the door. Have you heard the good word? All right. How's that? I'll throw it back on
I
him.
already tell this is going to be one heck of a show.
Oh, it's gonna be a
I
good
think we're
one.
about to do our best work yet.
And we haven't even hit record.
Colin.
I mean, this is good.
Hasn't even started. We've probably just blown it all.
That's it.
Show's been
That's
dull
all. I don't
and
have a
dry.
whole lot to give today. Maybe that'll make a good show. I don't know. We'll see.
The pre-4th of July show. We're gonna blow some stuff up.
Yep. Here we go.
Welcome to Wood Talk. Now here are 3 guys who always turn the other cheek when cleaning up tenons. Mark, Shannon, and Matt.
All right, it's Wood Talk number 395 for July 3rd, 2017. On today's show, we're talking about milling logs, oil and wax on hand tools causing finishing problems, when to use loose mortise and tenon joints, boards bowing off the sawmill, and panel raising planes. We want to mention that today's show is sponsored by Brusso Hardware. Now be sure to check out Brusso's Photo Extra newsletter. It's a weekly update from Brusso dedicated to customer-submitted photos. Brusso's customers work on detailed projects, including ring boxes, humidors, keepsakes, gun boxes, and furniture. It's an excellent source for inspiration on your next project. The newsletter is short, quick, has great photos, and is delivered right to your inbox. To sign up, visit brusso.com/photo extra. That's all one word, brusso.com/photo extra. Definitely want to sign up for that. Don't miss it. And we'd also like to thank some folks who helped us out on Patreon. And I failed to get their names up before I did this. So here, let me click. Okay, Jordan Peckham, Brian Lenhart, Greg Franklin, Rob Switzer, Chris Lindsay, Richard Murphy, and Andrew Elcom. Thank you so much, folks, for helping us out. And if you want to do that too, we'll mention your name at the top of the show. That's patreon.com/woodtalk. And we've got a bunch of different ways you could help support the show. But no matter what you do, we certainly appreciate it. And even if you don't, you're not inclined to do the whole Patreon thing, we appreciate you listening and telling your friends about it. That's what helps spread the word and gets more earballs listening to the show. So, of course, we appreciate any support in any way you want to give it to us. All right, let's get to what's on the bench. It's been a long 4 days, and it has nothing to do with woodworking. So we went on a road trip all the way to Utah, Snowbird, Utah, for Nerdtacular. And those of you who are sort of familiar with the podcasting community, you probably have heard of Frog Pants. It's very video game and tech-based podcasting network, basically, from my buddy Scott Johnson. And every time they do this Nerdtacular event, we go there, and we nerd out for a few days. So this was the first one we've done since moving to Colorado, and first time we brought the kids. So it was a 8-hour drive that took about 11 and a half hours to actually get there. And it was a blast. It was a lot of fun. It was very difficult, though, trying to do the social thing, like the personal social thing, and have the kids around and have to go to bed at like 7:30 and all that stuff. So yeah, so we were the lame ones.
I caught a tweet, I think it was from Nicole. It's like, while everyone's having fun at Nerdtacular, we're in our room watching the live stream.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
it's almost like insult to injury. Look at all the fun they're having without
right downstairs. Yeah, and the funny thing was we were able to, and we've done this before on road trips. We take the baby monitor with us because Ava goes to bed about 7:38, and Mateo not till like 9-ish. And so we set up the baby monitor, and the hallway was really long, and there was a nice little sitting area at the very end. So we put the monitor somewhere in the middle of the hallway, which really helps transfer the sound. Like you could hear it from all the way down the hall. So we plug in the baby monitor, and then we just set up camp in this little lounge area, hung out there, and a couple people would gravitate and sit down with us and hang out. So we had our own little mini party there just so that we can hear Ava through the baby monitor, which was fantastic. So, but either way, it was a lot of fun. And, the interesting thing was, even at an event like this, I met several woodworkers who were fans of the Wood Whisperer and, may have known me through Frog Pants stuff that I've done or that Nicole has done. But they actually are followers of the Wood Whisperer, which is a little bit weird. But every year it seems to happen. We meet a few people. So got to talk a little bit of woodworking in addition to all the other stuff. But man, we're exhausted. That it takes a lot out of you. You think sitting in a car shouldn't be that bad, but 10 hours, 11 and a half hours actually is what we did. With the kids, we are all ready to just kind of not do anything. So I'm surprised I'm able to do this.
Look at it this way. 10, 11 hours of driving through the Rocky Mountains to Utah is better than 10, 11 hours driving through Kansas.
That's true. Or Arizona, for that matter. I mean, that's one of the things that was great about this. Every trip we've ever gone on, as we pull into the driveway, I usually, Nicole was laughing at me yesterday because it was the first time I wasn't able to say it, but I usually go, home, crap, home. And it just, just because I never liked living where we lived. And this is the first time in a long time I was able to come home and be like, man, I'm actually not depressed about going home. Like, I like my house.
Not depressed about being here.
Yeah, I like this place. I can't say home, crap, home anymore. So, but yeah, that was about it. So I really, again, chairs, I got to get back on them, and that's going to be my mission this week once I clear out the inbox as far as woodworking goes. So that's it for me. So Matt, what do you got going on?
What's up?
Yo.
Oh, just doing whatever, just do my thing over here, Just, what do you know about that? You don't know nothing about that.
Hi, boy. That's how you should say it from now on. Hi, boy.
Boy.
There you go. Hi,
Wow.
boy.
Oh, we got that out of the way.
Wow.
He said it was going to be
Shannon,
a good show.
why didn't you get in on that? What's wrong with you? Come on, I thought we were like
He's not hip enough.
Because I know how white I am.
What? Don't make this about race, man. Come on.
That makes it even better, though.
Well, he is the oldest one in the
Okay.
group, so
Yeah, somebody's got to keep this train on the rails.
he's not down with us young fellas, Matt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to yell, "Get off my lawn!"
You old folk, come on, bogeys.
Yeah.
Dang. All right, I guess we can talk about woodworking in a normal, not exciting voice.
Yes, let's.
So yeah, I started on the high boy for real this week. I got going on the cabriole legs, and it's my first time doing those. And I have to say, I haven't had that. I don't know if you guys get this, but if you're doing something you haven't done before, and you're getting out there to do it, even though you know the process, you've read about it, you've seen the whatever about it, you get out there like every single step you question, you're like, am I about to screw this up? Is this exactly what I'm supposed to be doing right now? It's been a while since I've had that feeling, and it's just weird because I'm like, this is taking me forever because most of the time I'm sitting here like second guessing myself as if there's like that much complexity here.
Right.
But it's just the most ridiculous thing ever. But
it's got to be good though,
I'm
right?
there.
I mean, I think that's one of the traps we fall into. I know I certainly do. And that's we get in our comfort zones and we're teaching all the time, so we tend to gravitate toward those things that we know well so that we can do it and make it look good. The fact that you are feeling uncomfortable is probably a good thing because it means you're treading into a new area that you haven't, challenged yourself with in a while.
So it's also the fact that I'm like, I didn't cut an extra one either.
There you go.
Oh, yeah.
So I have my 4, and that's the 4 I have.
Stakes are a little higher.
I didn't do a practice one, and like the time frame with this build is gonna be pretty quick too, so I don't have time to screw that stuff up either. So I'm like, yeah, we'll just take a little bit extra time just to make sure things are looking good. And then you're like, then you get the extra.
That's why you always start with the back leg.
Yeah.
You start with those back legs.
I have 2 back
Just in
legs,
case.
and they're in the back.
Yes.
Those are the first ones.
Yeah, there you go. Cool.
Yeah, especially with that thing too, because you're like cutting you're cutting that profile on both faces. That's as far as I've gotten at this point, is just cutting the profile. But even that, I'm like, okay, let's make sure that I cut the first one right the first time, and then I'll put it back and cut the second one. Then I was cutting some relief cuts. I'm like, make sure I cut it on the right face, because if I cut them on the wrong face, then they're like these big old gouges in my keep area. I'm like, yeah. So yeah, there's that, I guess. But it's been fun. It's been good to be out there in the shop, doing some actual woodworking again, and it's been fun.
Cool.
Cool.
Sounds good. Shannon, what about you?
Well, since Brusso is sponsoring today's show, I have an interesting issue. I was saying before we recorded, if I don't get the finish on my blanket chest this 4th of July weekend, I will have failed as a human. But I am literally almost there. I just was installed the hinges on the lid last night, put the drawer pulls on, and I was doing the lid stay, that keeps the lid from swinging all the way back. And this was a first for me. You know how obviously if you cut a recess with cut a mortise with a router, you end up with rounded mortises, and it's, well, do you round the tenons? What do you do with that? This was the first time when I installed a piece of hardware and I chopped out the mortise, and the hardware itself was round.
Nice.
And it just occurred to me, Brusso is truly a modern company, that they don't expect some idiot like me to have a lid hinge stay, I'm showing it for the camera, that is round in cross-section.
Right.
So I didn't even think about it, because they have a schematic, that comes with it. It shows, what the links are and, where to position the mortise. So I laid it out, and that the hardware is right there. I just wasn't even thinking about it at the time. Chopped out a square mortise, and sure, it will fit. It looks fine. No, it doesn't look fine. That's the problem, because there's these square mortises. So it's just one of those weird kind of things. So used we are, says Yoda, to having to shape the wood to match, and square off the corners and things like that. And this was just the opposite. Here's a company that recognizes that most people are going to use a router to create this recess.
Yeah.
So let's make our hardware round. So I suppose that's a good thing for Brusso, unless you're a hand tool guy.
It's the curse of the hand tool guy, man.
I could have done it if I drilled it out, but I chopped it out. So yeah, I'm sitting here thinking about, should I just use epoxy?
Yeah.
Fill those gaps, or do I go ahead and stick in a piece and then rebore it out? I haven't quite figured out what I'm going to do yet. It's really tiny. That's the thing. It's little corners that are showing up, which just has me tempted to just use a filler or something like that instead of putting a new block of wood in. But
get some brass dust and put that in some epoxy, and then
Yeah,
you
there
won't
you
even
go.
know.
Yeah.
Perfect
So that was a
solution.
first. That was definitely a first. And that has, like anything, when you get down to those last little details, and it's like, oh yeah, install that hinge, just knock that stuff out. This stuff takes forever. These little tiny details. So fixing this is going to set me back probably an hour or two, which is keeping me further away from finishing. And, barbecue grill and blowing stuff up is a calling to me tomorrow. So
Yeah.
if I have the finish started, I'll have no problem excusing myself for, 30 minutes to come down and apply another coat and then come back up. But if I haven't started the finish by tomorrow, there's probably not a good chance that it will happen. So, yeah.
Gotcha. Do it right after this, man. No excuses.
Hey,
Just don't blow it up tomorrow, all right? Don't take your blanket chest out there and blow it up because you got so upset with it.
I'll fix you good.
Don't fall into that. You had to finish a project this year.
Awesome. All right. We got some cool things for what's new, and you've probably heard about this. Most people have. The parent company of Festool, TTS Tool Technic Systems, buys SawStop. And this kind of is one of those things where, man, do people love to speculate or what?
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like this is what like every forum is talking about right now, and not one of them has any actual information or knowledge about what's going to happen. But I think things that further confused it were the clickbaity sort of headlines like Fine Woodworking put out where Festool buys SawStop. Not quite the same thing. The parent company bought SawStop, and they're perfectly likely to operate these two like separate brands and keep them as separate brands. It doesn't mean that suddenly SawStops are going to turn green or your SawStop's going to come in a sustainer. I mean, it's like,
there you go.
Wouldn't that be something?
It's a big sustainer.
You could use it as a pool
awesome.
Afterwards. I think that'd be great. A giant fish tank. But
you could frost it and pop out of it.
Ooh, that'd be nice. That'd be a nice birthday gift for Nicole. So
what if I popped out of it?
No. Yes, actually, yes. I think she would love that.
Line, Mark. That's crossing a line.
It is a little bit. So Kyle actually wrote in with a question about this. He says, with the purchase of SawStop and the Bosch lawsuit seemingly over, do you see a scenario in which other tool manufacturers will be able to license the SawStop technology for a fee, of course? I think about how some laundry detergent says, now with the power of OxyClean on the box. I just wonder if we'll start seeing, for example, Jet Powermatic pay a licensing fee to SawStop so that they slap sweet now with SawStop technology stickers on their saws. Just a thought, thanks. So I think if you're going to go down the speculation path, if we're
say, isn't this just speculating more?
It really is, and I don't want to add to it.
Are you dragging us into the speculation game?
I feel like I am. Yes, actually, I think who was it? Kyle is doing it. So,
you read it.
Don't put the blame on me.
I'm blaming you. You read the thing.
What I think we should do is not speculate in terms of what will happen. I think what'll be more interesting, because we don't know anything, because none of us know anything, and none of them know anything. What would you want to happen out of this? So you've got two companies who, frankly, I think they are really good bedfellows in a way, right? They're both companies that have a very specific brand, that have penetrated the market in a very specific way, and they are not cheap. They come at a premium. So, I think they actually are a good company to be under that same umbrella. So what would you want to have happen with this? And I think Kyle, where he's going here, that is probably what I would want. The licensing deals that were not made in the past, perhaps a company like Festool has the ability, or I don't know what it would take to make this happen, and where the resistance still lies. But maybe being under this new company, maybe there's a initiative to make that happen. So that, I guess that's the question is, will this technology, or are they just buying it to simply operate SawStop and have that as a feather in their cap and continue moving forward? Or do you hope for some more integrations and expansion of what they do with that technology? Either one of you.
I hate to say it, but I feel like they're just buying it so that they can own and operate it because they see it as a profitable product. I would be actually surprised if I see cross-pollination. Like if we see flesh detecting track saws.
Right.
I would actually be really surprised because I feel like because it's the operating company, it's not Festool buying them. Mm-hmm. It's the operating company. It's kind of like, it's just another horse in our stable, if you will.
It's an IP acquisition in a way, They
rather
now own that.
than them crossing lines or anything like that. I think it'll probably be business as usual, kind of like we've seen with DeWalt and Porter Cable and all the companies that roll up under Black & Decker now. Mm-hmm. They're pretty much the same. They're just part of Black & Decker.
Right. You think anything different than that, Matt?
I think as a consumer, I'd like to see it offered in more of a competitive space like that, where you could have it licensed out and then you can kind of pick and choose your table saw and features from that. But from a business perspective on their side, I don't see them licensing it at all, especially since I don't have any actual numbers behind this, but I feel like SawStop is doing really well as far as selling table saws.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they're selling a lot of units, so I don't see a reason for them to license it if they're actually in a position to. I don't want to say like take over the whole table saw market, but take a pretty big share of it anyway.
Well, they certainly have already done that.
Yeah. So I mean, they can just continue doing that, but then again, it might be more profitable on a per unit basis to license it too. Who knows? I don't. Back to speculation again. I don't have the numbers.
Right. Exactly.
At the same time, Festool holds a very specific spot within like the contractor space. All their tools are meant to be mobile. Take it to the job site. This now offers a stationary, although don't they have a benchtop model now? Not benchtop, but like a mobile.
Portable, yeah.
Yeah, a portable SawStop. But the cabinet saws, the contractor saws and things kind of occupy that back in the shop thing. Mm-hmm. So that's another offering to their current contractor demographic that they don't really have. And I guess you figure rather than build one ourselves, let's just go out and buy, the number one in the market or pretty close to the number one in the market.
That's true too, because they can get into stationary tools then too. I know SawStop like mentioned that maybe they want to do other tools with flush sensing technology on them. Regardless if they want to release those or not, but you don't know if maybe they're working on that, and that's kind of more what they're after as well. The bigger product line that could be potentially there, either with or without flush sensing technology. They already have the manufacturing pathways there. If they wanted to do bandsaws or jointers or planers or whatever.
Yeah, they've got
that kind of realm.
In a sense, though, but when you look at a company like, Festool or TTS, they are mostly portable, smaller tools. They don't have a whole line of larger stationary power tools. So I feel like it's really unlikely that this, parent company takes SawStop in so that they could make bandsaws and jointers with some kind of flush sensing technology, because they don't already make those things. So I feel like, if anything, what we're going to see here is nothing. That's my guess. We're not going to see anything. It's just it's a successful brand. Why would they do anything major to change it if it's already doing so well and this is such a valuable property to have in the first place? I think it's just a feather in the cap sort of thing. But again, speculation. It's fun.
Oh boy, we should probably put a calendar event in for 2 or 3 years from now.
Yeah.
And then come back and see what happens.
See if when any of this actually came true. But yeah, I think people are kind of in an uproar about it, but it's like, what? They're so similar in terms of, what they offer, the kind of IPs that they have and the value in that stuff. I think it's probably a good matching. It's a good match. But I don't think we're going to see much change. Just my opinion. Okay. So that's that. And I guess you got the next one here, Matt.
Oh, cool. I have to look at this then. This is from Alan. Lots of guys who listen to the show do a lot more than make furniture. Here's a video. Why is my name in the middle of the word video?
Vidimato.
Whatever. Here's a video on screws that has some interesting nerdish info in it. And there's a link here, and I haven't opened it yet. But there's a video about screws.
Wow. See what happens when I try to assign equal amount of work to... I saw that Matt didn't have anything in the What's New section, so I figured, what? Let's give him something.
Oh, I have seen this video. Yeah, this is good.
Yeah, nice cover.
I like this guy.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks. Thanks for the retroactive endorsement.
I do enjoy his channel. It's growing very quickly. We talked about his video. I mentioned his video, the sawmill story, 2 or 3 months ago. Mm-hmm. So, yes, that's an endorsement of his channel from me.
Right.
You're welcome.
Right.
Good. Well, on a sad note, Lee Marshall, you guys may know Lee Marshall. He is the guy behind New Concepts, fret saws, coping saws. Mm-hmm. Lee passed away this week due to a battle with cancer. So that's really sad. Certainly this is news. If you go to New Concepts, to their homepage, there is a little bit of a memorial about Lee, but I wanted to bring it up because I met Lee at Woodworking in America. I don't know what year it was. Maybe it was 2011. But I didn't know who it was at the time. And the New Concepts, I think, was still relatively new to the scene, that he probably could have said, "Hi, I'm Lee Marshall," and that would have meant nothing to me. But I had one of the most down-to-earth, just cool conversations I've ever had at Woodworking in America, just sitting at a table, in the back of the marketplace. There was a tables there where you could eat. They had like a snack bar or whatever. And was just sitting down, and we talked about like global economics in the middle of a woodworking event. I don't even remember what started the conversation. And it was like 20 minutes into it. It was like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm Shannon Rogers. Oh, I'm Lee Marshall. Oh, what brings you here? Well, we've got this saw. Oh, I know your saw. And before I knew it, Lee was putting one of his saws in my hands to try out and play with. And to this day, I still have the saw that Lee gave me. It's one of the original prototypes of that saw. Nice. And it was just a really cool moment where at a woodworking conference talking about everything but woodworking. And it was just kind of this secondary thing that, oh yeah, I make saws. And it turned out to be a saw that I was really interested in trying out. He was just a really cool dude, and it's a big loss. So you will be missed, Lee.
Yeah, for sure. I actually never met the guy, but I do have one of his amazing saws on the wall, and it's very special to me. If you've never seen them, by the way, look them up. New Concepts. They just make amazing saws. The engineering behind it, it's probably, I think some would say, over-engineered to an extent for what it is, but they are gorgeous. So if you really just like well thought out, high-end, good quality tools, you're probably going to want to check that out. So,
yes, sir.
Alrighty. Let's get into, I got one more thing here. So this morning, popped into my feed on my podcast app. I listened to an audio podcast called Stuff You Should Know. I think a lot of you probably also listen to that. And they are doing like repeat shows for the weekends from past shows. And this one was about why the U.S. isn't on the metric system. So this does come up.
Sucks.
Because it sucks. It's stupid. It's really interesting. It's not from a builder's perspective per se, but it does give a very interesting background on the history of the systems that we use and why the U.S. is where they are, and actually shows just how much the U.S. does use the metric system. And you may not even realize it. It's just there are certain things that, it hasn't been something that's been forced upon us, but there have been laws in the past that make it perfectly viable to run a business and use the metric system in the United States. But in a lot of cases, it's actually just optional. So they choose not to, or they do both. So anyway, I thought it was interesting for folks who always talk about this metric versus, the U.S. system. It's not imperial, technically, right? It's, what the heck is the name for it? You know what I'm talking about. But look it up.
God's system of measurement.
I call it imperial. I don't know.
Yeah, technically it's called something else, like United States something. I don't know. You people look it up. You'll find it. But definitely good podcast. Take a listen.
We'll hear about it.
You will.
You can't mention something like this without somebody saying something about it.
Next week's kickback. Something. Here it comes. Okay, so speaking of kickback, we've got 3 voicemail kickbacks here, and this is definitely a contender for my favorite voicemail that we've ever had.
Hey, Mark, Matt, and Shannon. Nice to talk to you guys. Before I get to my question, I just want to talk about professionalism. You guys have been doing this podcast for quite a few years now, and just last week or the week before, with Mark's air compressor going off and Shannon's terrible connection with the Skype, it's just, we expect more from you guys, so let's... friendly advice, let's get with it, Anyway, on to my question. For Mark. God damn it. Hold on. Wait. All right. Okay. I'm sorry about that. Anyway, my question for... How do you... When...
Jeez. That's great.
All right. Oh, thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. All right, take care. All right, I think that was pretty funny. Let me just turn off this voice recording, and hopefully those 2 hairy guys and that albino gorilla find it funny.
So
Gorilla.
Maybe albino gorilla might be the best thing to even come out of that voicemail, as good as that was. It's got the hairy giggler, the albino gorilla, and I'm still waiting for mine. So I shouldn't invite that, but I'd like to know what my new nickname is going to be.
Still waiting for mine.
Oh,
Somebody
man.
roast me quick.
Kevin, fantastic, man. That goes in like the voicemail Hall of Fame. That was great.
Yeah. Any voicemails with props. It's important.
Yeah. Well, especially when they work. Think about how many times people have tried to do things that are like audio focused and somehow the Skype thing. Well, you know what the difference is? We're not using Skype for these. It's voice memos, which is going to be much better audio quality. So there you go. There's another reason to use the voice memo apps. Okay.
All right.
Next one here is from Mike, and he is definitively stating that Shannon is wrong.
Nice.
Shannon. On the last episode, you stated that Douglas fir is not pine. I object! And so did James Crunoff, who referred to Douglas fir as Oregon pine. The taxonomy of Doug fir has long been debated, and it currently occupies its own genus, but is part of the broader pine family. Love the show, but Mr. Lumber Industry Guy needs to get his facts straight. This is Mike from Chicago.
Don't you love that?
Wow. Okay. I'm not going to say anything to that.
That's
other than
fine.
The fact that if you want to go up to family, there's a lot of stuff that's in the pine family. Just kind of like how we say, what did the caller say earlier? Now with the power of OxyClean? Yeah. Now with the power of pine, or now with the power of mahogany. It's like, yeah, just because it's in the Melisae family doesn't mean it's mahogany, people. And just because it's in the Pinaceae family doesn't mean it's pine. So,
See,
yeah.
You know what I love about you is that you can rattle off all these Latin names for all these genus, species, and families, but you don't know what the damn like hand plane numbers are.
No.
Hey, he's got his priorities straight. That's it.
It's called having to build an entire website for a lumber company, which you've written out these botanical names enough. You tend to know them.
Also, not
But
to
no.
mention, I think most of our audience, like when Shannon does these Latin terms, they're not going to check it, and they don't know the difference. So he could be just making
It's
crap
true.
up.
I could just be making that up. Yeah.
It's just safer
But-
bet.
But Mike, your point is well taken. At least you didn't go all the way up to the phylum or the order or the kingdom and say it's all in the same kingdom.
Shannon,
But
they're
yeah,
all
so-
trees. So
I was
They're all-
gonna say,
just-
technically,
just stop.
They're all trees, so yeah, fair enough.
okay, we got one more kickback here from Jared.
Hey guys, this is Jared. I just had a quick comment. I thought it was a funny coincidence that just on the other show that Shannon mentioned the Winterthur Museum. It's actually funny, my brother-in-law is actually the arborist there, which is a funny coincidence. But Shannon, I just wanted to let you know that if you ever need any free tickets or tours or admission to the museum, please don't hesitate to get to know somebody that works there. It's awesome. Thanks, guys. Bye.
There you go. Get some freebies, Shannon.
Awesome. That was so great.
Don't hesitate to get to know somebody who can get you some free tickets.
That was so well done, Jared. Good voicemail kickback this week.
Right? I know. Seriously.
We're on point. Oh man.
All right, so let's move on. We've got one here from Jean Paul. He says, I'm wondering when the box stores will get in trouble for selling S4S that still has live edge. I just had to sort through 2 layers of 4x4s to find a single piece that I could use for fencing. I don't know. There's just hundreds of things we should be going after these companies for. I mean, let's make them suffer for their insolence.
Yeah, make them pay.
Make them pay. They have deep pockets. Screw them.
All right. We've got a long one here, but hang on. It's good. This is from Rob.
That's
He
what she
says,
said.
I've been a fan of your show for a while now, so I'm happy that I have the opportunity to now return the favor of information. In one of your latest shows, Ashley asked, what's the deal with upholstery? As it turns out, my wife and I own a small custom furniture company that specializes in upholstered pieces. I think a lot of the mystery of upholstery is due to its dynamic nature. Due to the fact that wood is flexible and has small changes over time due to age and humidity, it's still a very static material when compared with fabric and foam, which deforms at every touch. Much like woodworking, this little magic mouse thing and my screen just went all funky.
Woodworking.
Much like woodworking, the difference between something passable and something well done is in the details. It doesn't take much time, much skill to put together a box with simple butt or rabbet joints, but dovetail corners with no gaps take a lot of practice. Upholstering a seat could be as simple as stretching fabric over corners and how the fabric stretches. Oh, excuse me, I did it again.
Wow.
This is hard to read.
Hey. Pulling a mat. Way to go.
Yeah, well, it's stretching fabric over some foam and putting in a bunch of staples. Bringing it to the next level requires attention to the details, like how things get folded around corners or how the fabric stretches around a curved profile or layering several types of foam or filler to achieve a balance between the support and comfort. It's really more of an art dependent upon skill and experience than a science dependent upon trade secrets. Having seen the incredible stuff that our upholsterers have made has really opened my eyes to the details in upholstery. Now I can't help but notice all the mushy corners and inconvenient seams in mass-produced furniture. That sounds familiar. I think the reason it's hard to find much information about upholstery is because it's a difficult skill to teach without personal interaction. Another interesting detail about upholstered furniture is the difference in how frames are constructed. Carpenters will use more of an approach of a sculptor than an engineer. Bits and pieces are glued on and then cut back to achieve the necessary profile to support the layers of upholstery. They also have to consider where the upholstery will be attached and account for the varying thicknesses of the cover material. The results can sometimes look more like a kid's popsicle stick project than a piece of furniture. This process is also a product of years of experience and an understanding of how the frame will interact with upholstery. I've learned enough about upholstery in the last year that if I were trying to upholster the seat for a beautiful chair I've spent a lot of time crafting, I would probably just outsource it to a professional. But if it interests you enough, try to find someone to teach you and expect to put in a lot of practice. So there we go.
Okay.
Straight from the horse's mouth, people.
Upholstery.
If you want to
It ain't
upholster
easy.
stuff, hire him.
No, hire
hire
someone
someone
else, apparently.
Well,
And he'll sub it out.
he says he runs a company, so yeah, maybe that's kind of a self-serving comment.
Suspicious.
All right. Moving on. This next one is from Matt. He says, in response to measuring once, cutting twice, or 6 times, or 20 times, who cares? When you look at a finished piece of work, do you ever ask yourself, I wonder if they got all their cuts right the first time? Generally, no. You just admire what the finished product looks like. Much like when you're applying for a job, hirers want to know if you have the degree and care far less about where it's from. What it ultimately comes down to is, did you get the job done? Enjoy your show immensely. 3 out of 2 of you make it great. Oh, wait. That's a measuring thing.
That's a good joke. Anybody want to reflect this kickback? Kickback, the kickback, if you will? I kind of do.
I'm thinking you do.
Can I?
Yeah, go for it.
I just trying to pre-segue myself into this.
Boy.
It's fine. It's fine. I agree. And a lot of things, we debate this stuff and who cares. But I think this is a technique issue and a technique question. If you're cutting 6 times versus cutting once, that's a big time investment. So you have to justify why in the world are we telling people to cut 6 times instead of once? So I think we care. This is an important thing. If you're teaching someone how to do woodworking, they are very different strategies for getting to that end result. So I do think this is one of those things that I think is worth spending time talking about. I agree, it doesn't make a difference in the end result, but if it makes a difference in how long it takes you to do it or the amount of gaps you have in that end result, then it is worth talking about. There are many other things that I would totally say who cares about, but this is not one of them for me.
Measure
Well
once,
said.
cut once. That's CNC.
Yes.
To me.
Yeah. You want to measure once and cut once? Buy a CNC. You'll be good to go. Okay. You know what's next? One of my favorite segments. Shannon, I paid for this so that you wouldn't have to do it.
Oh,
Industry update.
All right. Shannon, what's going on in the world of lumber?
oh man. Good show. So today we're going to talk about botanical taxonomies and what it means when we say family versus genus and species. No, we already did that. Sorry.
Yeah. Too late.
This is from somebody. It used to say who it was from, but now we don't know what it is. So we're going to say it's from Steve.
I'll tell you what,
Our good friend
invariably,
Steve.
you remove the name out of your emails. That's a trend I've noticed.
Invariably. So, what's the deal with teak?
What's the deal with teak?
I've heard you can't get, quote, real teak anymore due to its being endangered. But obviously, I still see teak furniture being sold. So what are they using? What species should I look at if I'm looking to build an outdoor dining table and chairs? So what is the deal with teak? The deal with teak is it's very, very, very expensive. Comes from a very long way away, but you can still absolutely get it. Real teak or genuine teak comes from Burma, or it's called Myanmar now. It was called Burma when the British ruled it. Myanmar, that's where the good stuff comes from due to the soil chemistry and everything. That's where you get that lovely silicone-rich teak that has the nice honey brown color. It's a little streaky when it's first milled, but it mellows to a beautiful honey brown stuff. Because there was an economic embargo against Myanmar for many, many, many years, you technically could not get teak directly from Myanmar. But you could get it from a sawmill in Indonesia who got it from Myanmar. So we were still bringing the genuine stuff in, and we still are now. The economic embargo was lifted, but you have to have a specific license to import the material, which is not something that's super, super easy to get. I mean, technically, all you have to do is become a member of the International Wood Products Association and you have access to the license, but there's a lot of other stuff that goes into that. So what it means is the genuine teak is really only being brought into the country from pretty legitimate companies that have a lot of history and a lot of experience in doing import and have specific relationships with Myanmar sawmills. But all that makes it even more expensive. So the genuine teak is ending up on, lifestyles of the rich and famous, boats and very expensive yachts and very expensive homes and things. A lot of the furniture that's being built today may still be made using genuine teak, Tectona grandis. That's the genus and species. But it's grown in a plantation in India or Indonesia, somewhere in Africa. If it says African teak, it's probably Kumru and not teak. But there's a lot of plantations that have cropped up, just like there are a lot of mahogany plantations. Here is a valuable species. Where else can we grow it? Because it's Burma's a long, long way away. So if we can get it somewhere closer to market, we can make some more money on it. The problem is particular working properties of a tree are incredibly specific to the soil chemistry where that tree grew. So the reason that genuine teak in Myanmar is so good at what it does is because of the specific soil chemistry and the amount of rainfall in that tiny little country. When you move teak to India, for example, especially like northern India, where a lot of the stuff is coming from, it doesn't have nearly the silicone content. And because of that, the extractives and the minerals and things are very different. So a lot of times it's a lot streakier and spottier. So if you're looking at furniture and it's got what most of us would think is, oh, look at that cool character and figure, that's probably a plantation species. The genuine stuff is a lot more consistent in color, a lot less streaks. So you're still getting it, but from where are you getting it is the real question. I would say probably more than half of the teak being sold not for the boat building industry is probably a plantation variety, and that's fine. The waterproof nature of teak is great for boats. There's really very few other applications in home building and things that you need that amount of waterproofing and exterior rating in your teak. So plantation stuff or using an alternate species like Afrormosia might be better off. It'll certainly save you a little bit of money. So there you go. It's still there. You can still get it. It's still the real stuff unless it came from a plantation. Then it's not the real stuff.
Nice. I'm going to give you a little bit of trivia that kind of wraps around to a previous topic. Did you know that Myanmar is one of 3 countries that have not adapted the metric system as their official system of weights and measures?
I did know that,
Think about that. Isn't that kind of crazy? It does say that they, in 2013, announced that they were preparing to adopt the system, but I don't know what the current status of that is. That's a while ago. You think things might be in motion by now.
Current status of anything in Myanmar is up in the air.
Yeah.
There's a lot of upheaval going on there. It's a total military regime that turned democracy overnight. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff, a lot of infrastructure that doesn't exist. My buyer just got back from Myanmar about a week ago, and she's just like, every time we go, it's like, who knows? Who knows what the rules are going to be this time?
There's a good episode of Parts Unknown with Anthony Bourdain that covers that. You might want to check it out. It's pretty good. Okay, so we got some voicemail. We're gonna have to hustle here, guys. We got 4 voicemails, three, and then our emails. So let's do it. This one's from Steven.
Hey guys, this is Steven from South Carolina. Long-time listener, first-time voice memo, I guess. This question is kind of in relation to something that was brought up in episode 391 regarding tool storage and tool use in high humidity areas. Something that has been brought up recently by myself and others on the free side of the forum was the use of wax or oil on plane soles, and if any of that could be possibly transferred to a finished workpiece or almost finished workpiece prior to the use of stain, varnish, etc., and if that might cause fish eyes. I know that's been brought up several times in the past regarding some other things, wax and such. But if I could get some clarification, is this something that we need to be mindful of as people that use hand tools? Try to take the wax off or try to take the oil off prior to our last passes before finishing? Or is it something that's so negligible it has no real bearing on the end piece? So I'd like to get some input from 3 professionals, or at least 2 professionals and a hairy giggler. Love everything that you guys do. Keep up the good work. Have a good one.
I love how almost every voicemail somehow takes a shot at one of us. Like that's the theme we've established. Like we're the punching
That
bags.
is the audience we've collected.
I love it.
The important thing in this consideration is anytime you apply the wax on, you have to take the wax off. But
Oh boy.
sorry, you got to be watching the video.
Wax off. Wax off. Okay, so
my
Shannon, for the sake of expedience, why don't you take this one?
No, it does not matter.
Okay.
I've been waxing my plane soles for years, never had a finishing problem. You're not applying huge amounts of wax here. And for the most part, when we're waxing our plane soles, we're using like a dry wax, like a paraffin. I guess you could be using paste wax. That just seems like a waste. Occasionally I've used Renaissance wax, which is specifically formulated not to interfere with finish, but I'm only using that as like a rust preventative. I'm not using it as a lubricant. So like a dry paraffin or beeswax, there's just so little that goes onto the surface. Never had a problem.
Okay.
Never once.
Neither have I.
When
And
I finish.
I use Renaissance wax, and I've never seen an issue with it. All right, so Adam has a question about milling logs.
Hi, Mark, Shannon, Matt. This is Adam from Seattle. I'll try to keep this as short as I can. I know how you love long questions. But this question is for Matt and Shannon. Mark is free to put in his 2 cents. I allow it this time. My question is about milling logs. I don't have a bandsaw mill or a chainsaw or anything like that, and I don't have a whole lot of space. So the logs I'm looking at are maybe 2 to 4 feet in length and big enough to fit in a back of an SUV, but not so small that I could do it on my 17-inch bandsaw. So kind of looking still at bigger logs, but something that I can wrangle myself. So the Shannon part of the question is, I'm looking at doing this with hand tools, either some type of saw or a froe and some wedges, or I don't know. I'm looking for the best way to do it. The Matt end of the question is, what do you think would be the best way to dry something that would be that small? Is there any other concerns that you'd have to watch out for it being a smaller log, or would you still stack and dry it the same way? Let me know what you guys think. Thanks for the podcast, and it helps with my long Seattle commute. So keep up the good work. Thanks, guys.
Okay, go for it. Is Shannon muted?
Sorry, I was muted. Okay.
I'm like, is he joking or is this actually happening?
I couldn't tell if that was a real thing.
Yeah, I see his lips moving, but I don't hear nothing. Right.
Yeah, I'm back.
Try again, Shannon.
Because he's cursing when we listen to the question.
Yeah, no, it's because I was eating a cracker.
Oh.
The milling by hand, that is a heck of a lot of work. You are going to definitely need to get a saw that's either dedicated to that, like a pit saw type big beast with really aggressive teeth, I would really recommend splitting. A maul, some wedges. Heck, you could even make gluts out of wooden wedges. I wouldn't really use a fro at this early stage when it comes to actually splitting a log. That generally when you get into smaller sections and wedges, but when you start splitting, you can often end up with a lot of waste because you just don't know how that log is going to split. So, it's a very efficient way of breaking down stock real quickly, but you may not end up with something that's terribly usable. Whereas if you saw it through and through, obviously you end up with a full diameter, and maybe there's some sapwood and stuff like that. So that is a lot of work, man, to do on your own, even in short sections. So you're gonna need a really nice crosscut saw, like to buck them into basic lengths. That's not something that I would really want to attempt, honestly. I would split it more than anything. Man, that's a lot of sawing with a really big saw, a very dedicated saw that you're probably not going to have a lot of luck finding a new manufacturer for. You may have to buy a vintage one. Then you've got to buy a bunch of saw files and learn to sharpen that specific type of sawtooth. A lot of times they're 2-man saws as well. So there's a lot of things that come into this that you heard it here, folks. You might just buy a bandsaw.
Whoa! Okay, that's good to hear. Matt, what about your portion?
Take it to Matt's house.
There you go.
Take it to Matt's
It's a
house.
short
There
drive.
you go.
So what about your portion of the question, Matt?
I'll say I agree with Shannon for that moment in my life.
Keep saying that. That'll be good.
That's going to be a lot of work to do that by hand, like with an actual handsaw. And splitting is definitely going to be a faster way to go. But man, if that log is not straight grained, you're going to end up with some really twisty boards.
Yeah,
you're
getting into a specific use case too. Riven wood is great for things like chair building and such, but it's entirely too inefficient for casework.
Oh yeah, the amount of waste you're gonna have trying to get those boards into flat as it came out of that log all goofy because the grain was goofy.
Yeah,
and yeah, you're not gonna be splitting a crotch. I'll tell you that much.
Hey-o.
Good luck with that.
What about the part of this question?
Drying?
Yeah, I was asking about storage and stuff.
Pay attention, Matt.
Hey,
answer the question you were supposed to answer, sir.
I thought it was like a friendly discussion.
Never on this show is it a friendly discussion.
That was the job I was sold. I was said this is gonna be a friendly discussion.
It's no big deal, man.
Allow you to talk a little bit.
Total casual. We lied.
Occasionally say something important, whatever. Just keep it to a minimum.
Yeah.
And keep it professionalism low. That was what you guys told me this was about.
Keep the professionalism low.
Yes, as low as possible. Set the expectations low, please.
Oh man. So for drawing that stuff, if you're gonna split that stuff out and you're gonna rive it out like that, it's not gonna be flat, most likely, unless that log is perfectly straight. So you're gonna have an interesting time trying to get it to stack, unless you somehow get some stickers in between all like the wedges and the pieces, and you kind of band it together as a log again with holes in it. Essentially, that's probably gonna be the easiest way to go because they're not gonna really stack that well. But if you are able to get them straight, stacking them is gonna be pretty much the normal way to go. The one thing I think about though is if you're talking small diameter logs, at least actual small diameter trees, or are you talking about branches? Branches are going to have a lot more movement in them. They have a lot more reaction wood. So getting them to be dry and flat is going to be one thing, and then getting them to stay flat after you use them is another separate thing. But we can just talk about like getting it to stay flat. Those smaller diameter logs, at least in my experience, they tend to have a lot more cupping and a lot more movement in that form when they're drying. And branches could do anything. So a lot of weight on top of that stack is going to be helping out a lot to keep those boards flat as they dry, like more weight than I would probably normally use.
I would band it, honestly, steel band it or some sort of banding to apply compression.
That would work too. The thing with banding is you have to tighten them up as it shrinks. So I use ratchet straps, but you can use banding or whatever weight you can get on top of that thing. Like if you got a couple 1,000 pounds of something, put that on top.
Yeah, just think about the smaller diameter stuff. It's a more radical curvature to the growth rings. So as it dries, that curvature is going to do weird stuff. So not fun.
But still, I mean, go for it. Whatever. It's free stuff.
Worth a shot. Why not? All right. If you want to send us a voicemail, you can do so using your voice memo app on your smart device and send that to woodtalkonline@gmail.com and we'll play it on the show. Now we can get to our emails. First one here is from Matt from New Jersey. He says, first, by the way, no one talks like that in New Jersey, but that's what people say all the time. First, I want to thank all of you for the content you produce. Mark, your videos are what first started me down the rabbit hole of woodworking instead of just DIY home projects. Matt, you have recently got me excited about milling lumber, and I'm now the proud new owner of a Panther Mill 2 and a couple of walnut logs waiting to become boards. And Shannon, I suppose I'll have to learn how to use a non-electric tool one of these days, but more of that later. For now, I definitely appreciate your addition to the podcast. My question is regarding joinery. On Mark's trestle...
Such an honorable mention.
Yes, it is. You still get a trophy, Shannon, so
Yay.
you can go home happy, and you'll get an ice cream as well. So regarding joinery on Mark's trestle table from 2010, I'm doing a similar design with the top scaled down to 48 by 30 out of hard maple. Don't have a domino and trying to figure out the best way to join the leg components. I'm thinking angled integral tenons, cut using a homemade tenoning jig on the table saw for the face cheeks, and a dovetail saw. Okay, I'm going to abbreviate this. Basically, if you ever saw this project, it's very large legs. We're talking about I think I went to pretty close to 4x4 for these blanks, and then I just kind of curved them and sculpted them and just made them look a little bit more organic and earthy. So you've got a vertical member that needs to connect to a foot. And the thing is, because these pieces are so thick, what I wound up using was the domino for this, made it super easy. They're very thick and they're coming in at an angle. And his question is basically, since he doesn't have the domino, should he be trying these integral tenons with angles, or is this a good case for loose tenon joinery? And that's kind of what I wanted to make this a little bit more broadly about. One of the best situations, the best case scenario for a tricky angled joint like this is if you can do a loose mortise and tenon joint. So anytime I have tricky angles, that's one of the first things I ask myself is how can I do this with loose mortise and tenon joints? And the reason is because your joint is typically going to be perpendicular. So your mortises that you would cut are perpendicular to the joint itself. So if you think about that, if you've got a nice thick leg there, you can actually balance your router pretty well on that. If the piece is very small and thin, it gets a little bit trickier and you have to add extra things to make it work. But in the case of this particular project, you've got a lot of reference surface just built in to the legs. So I think this is a perfect candidate for a loose mortise and tenon joint. If you go into angled integral tenons, it's fine. You can do it, but I think it actually increases the complexity of what you're going to have to do. This way, you just cut it to the angle you need it. Just get a nice straight cut at the end of those pieces. And as long as they butt up together nice, then you could just cut your joints perpendicular to that end grain face, and you should be good to go. So that's one of the things I would always recommend people do is see if the loose mortise and tenon concept simplifies what you're trying to do. In a lot of cases, it will. Sometimes it might make it a little more difficult, so you're better off doing something else. But certainly in the case of that table, I would go loose on that one.
I think the minute you start angling your tenons too, you run into grain issues, cross grain issues. Mm-hmm. I think you're better off if you're doing an integral tenon to angle the shoulder and not the tenon. Keep the tenon in line with the long axis of that board. Mm-hmm. So essentially, it's like a loose tenon already joined into place.
Right. Well, and the other thing about that, though, you do that, now you have to cut an angled, you have to route or cut an angled mortise into the adjoining piece, which again, depending on how you do this stuff, might make it more difficult.
Right, unless you go with what you're talking about. Now you're angling your reference surface. So you could do a combination of both. If you, for some reason, don't like the loose tenon idea, make an integral tenon with an angled shoulder, and then make the angled face to the mortise and chop the mortise square to the face.
Yeah, that sounds fun. I'd rather just route them both and be done with it. All right.
Some people are weird when it comes to loose tenons. It's like they treat them like the pocket holes or something. It's like there's nothing wrong with loose tenons.
So is there something wrong with pocket holes? What are you trying to say?
Yes.
Okay, you heard it here first, guys. Send all email to.
God, you can't say anything without being in contention anymore.
No, you can't.
What's wrong with this world?
Why don't we just start calling them like pocket mortises?
Here we go.
What do you think? What do you guys think?
So
sounds a little better.
You're gonna call a screw a pocket helical tenon?
Yeah, it's a helical tenon. It's fine. Whatever.
A metal helical tenon?
It's a loose metal helical tenon.
Serrated.
It really is. I think you're right. Pocket holes and pocket screws just have a branding problem. That's what we could fix here.
Oh, man. We could really fix up their image for them.
We could. Let's call Craig. Jeez. Did you hear that? Sorry.
What the heck was that?
That's my security system telling me that the front door is open.
Oh.
Say, it's like, is that Ava's baby monitor? Because she's
Ava is crying.
Ava needs food badly.
All right, who's next? Matt, you're next.
Oh, okay.
There's an awkward pause in the show. It must be Matt's
It's
turn.
probably Matt's turn, yes.
And then there's more talking about it. It still must be Matt's turn. Okay. And there's awkward pause again, and then it kind of repeats.
We're just letting you go.
Right. Anyway, this is a sawmill question for Matt, obviously. Come on, you guys can't answer any of these questions. Last week, I was assisting in milling up some white oak, cutting mostly dimensional lumber. On some logs, after cutting the cant at the beginning of the cut, the 2x6 boards seemed to peel up behind the blade, basically bowing as soon as it was cut. I was wondering if this could be due to moisture, pressure built up in the log based on growth or something else. Love the show. Keep up the good work. This is from Zach. So it could be the log, could be how it was growing, could be stresses in there, all kinds of stuff like that. You know, trees do weird stuff as they're cut up in the boards because it's releasing a lot of stress. One thing that a lot of sawyers will do as they're cutting from a cant is they'll flip the cant over 180 degrees as they're cutting boards off of it to help to equalize some of that stress in the cant. That way, as you get down to that last board, it's not bowing up off the bed and you end up with like this weird, like tapered board at the bottom. But, you know, it's peeling up like that, pretty normal. I wouldn't worry too much about it as long as your sawyer knows what he's doing, I guess. The end.
Okay.
Quick one.
The end.
Shannon.
This question comes from Brian. He says, I've heard Shannon brag about his fancy raised panel hand plane a few times now. What the hell does a raised panel plane do? Obviously, it raises panels, but why do I need my panels raised? What does that even mean?
What?
Okay. The real reason is if you use, well, you can't make the groove in a frame and panel assembly. You can't make that groove super wide. You know, if you've got a 3/4 inch rail in style and you're trying to use, say, a 1/2 inch thick panel, you're now routing out, chopping out, whatever, a 1/2 inch material out of the groove out of that 3/4 inch rail in style, and you end up with really weak sidewalls there. So usually the groove in frame and panel is about 1/4 inch, maybe a little bit more than that, maybe a little bit less. Well, you could use a 1/4 inch panel, but 1/4 inch material tends to flex and bend and cup and stuff all the time. It also may lose a little bit of strength. It can sometimes even just be a little chintzy looking because it's so thin. The door itself ends up being so thin that it loses insulation properties, all kinds of fun stuff. So we try to use thicker material. Well, then we have to cut a rabbet around the inside so that the resulting tongue can fit into that 1/4 inch groove. So you could end up with a flat panel like the video watchers may see behind me, but there is a rabbet on the inside of the door. You're showing a flat panel to the front, but there's a rabbet on the inside. Or if you flip it around, there's a rabbet on the outside, and it's like, well, that doesn't look very pretty. So they added in the fancy raised panel with the bevel and the raised field and all that stuff. And that's what allows you to take a thicker panel and thin it down at the edges to fit inside a groove. That's the real primary reason for it. And it was just kind of a decorative add-on, if you will. And that's what the panel raising plane does, is it quickly cuts the rabbets into the side while making a pretty transition in between the thicker part of the stock and the thinner part of the stock.
So pretty.
The end.
And if you
Can't
don't
you do that with like a router?
Well, sure.
Of course, Matt.
It's not about the tool, Matt. It's about the...
I'm trying to draw parallels for the people that don't know hand plane stuff.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
But his question is, why would you raise a panel in the first place? It doesn't matter how you do it.
Well,
that is why.
You're making the assumption that people will hear about this for the first time think the only way they can do it is with the panel raising hand plane.
Well, that's really the only way to do
That's
it.
the only way he recognizes.
The only self-respecting way to do it.
If you want to be a good person. Well, and here's the other thing for Brian. If
panel
you're
raising bit and a handheld trim router. Go for it.
Yeah. He says, what does it even mean? It sounds like he's not familiar with general door, construction or, door panel construction. So if you look at kitchen cabinets, it's usually where you're going to see, raised panels in use a lot. If you see that panel has some sort of decorative element where it looks, there's multiple dimensions, it's just not flat, that's usually a raised panel in there. And that's what Shannon's talking about. It's kind of a, satisfying a functional thing. You get to use a thicker panel and have it fit into a thinner groove, but you also get a very strong visual impact from raising a panel. And sometimes that's good and bad depending on the style you're going for. So,
Yep.
all
What'd you
right. We also have a email extra that we do for our $4 and higher patrons, and today we're going to talk about tool upgrades. And you can find out all that information about the Patreon stuff over at patreon.com/woodtalk. And let's see what else you could do. You could buy a Wood Talk t-shirt at the TWW store. That's twwstore.com. And you could give us a review in iTunes. That's always appreciated. Just look us up, click on ratings and reviews, and drop in a sweet screen name, because those are always fun to read, and give us a little review there. We appreciate it. Shannon, how about you give them the contact info, and we'll get out of here.
If you want to send us a voice memo with a veiled or just blatant insult in it, you can do so by recording your voice memos on your phone, your various apps, your QuickTime apps, all over, and send that voice memo to woodtalkonline@gmail.com. Or you can type it out at our contact form at woodtalkshow.com/contact, or just go to the website to this show, woodtalkshow.com, leave a comment below. You can catch us on the Twitters at Wood Talk Show, as well as on the Facebook. Don't forget, you people, I mean that in the most offensive way possible. I said you people before I realized what I was saying. So you people at Patreon make this possible. Patreon.com/woodtalk. And don't forget, we each have our own sites. We occasionally go there. TheWoodWhisperer.com, RenaissanceWoodworker.com, and MattCremona.com, along with 7,000 other domains.
Yep, that's right. All right, well, thanks for listening, everyone, and we will catch you next time.
Bye-bye. Douglas fir is not a pine.
Nice. I got that in the recording, too.
Okay. Important to have those Easter eggs, you know.
Those are the...
Roll for Marvel.
Those make it
the same reason I sat all the way through the credits of Wonder Woman, knowing full well DC wouldn't put an Easter egg in, but I didn't want to miss it just in case.
Yeah, you know, we went to see it at the Alamo Draft House, and they had a sign on the way in letting you know there were no end credit Easter eggs and stuff.
Get out, we got to clean up.
That's exactly what it is. Like, our staff needs to clean, so get the hell out. All right.
What if I want to know who the gaffer was in the London unit?
Oh, you can stay for the credits. You just can't stay after the credits.
What if it's like Uncle Bob was the best boy, or the grip?
Right.
Craft Services was.
Okay.
Yep.
So let's skip to the weekend show. Let's try to make these quick. I'm hungry, tired.
Yeah, me too.
It's the weekend.
It's
Hope you guys all survive the 4th.
Is everybody hungover still? All right. I need water, so I'll be back. If you guys need a pee, go relieve yourselves. Oh, that's blowing bubbles. Sweet.
That's blowing bubbles.
I have so many flies in my shop right now. I don't know whether it's because it was closed up and it was like super hot while I was in Maine that.
Oh yeah, maybe.
But like flies come from like larvae. Like how the get in here? Like what has died? What maggots are like in my shop? When I first moved into this house, there was apparently a bunch of like construction materials like left up against the wall in the garage, and they were left there because obviously we were trying to move in, and they were left there for months. And I guess while we were moving in, a squirrel got in and died.
Oh my god!
But like there was never a smell. Like when I found the squirrel carcass, it was so unbelievably desiccated. So I don't know whether we just didn't notice it because we weren't in the garage at all, but I found the squirrel carcass because all the larvae had hatched, and there was like 400 flies in the shop. And I was like, where is this coming from? And that's where I found this like dry, desiccated squirrel husk. So now that I've got like 6 flies in my shop now, I'm like looking around for dead squirrels.
You know, that'd make a great bench brush. Just take the tail there and
it's true. Yeah.
Slap it on a piece of wood, you get a little bench brush thing. You know, brush off your bench, you know?
Sure.
I think Mark walked into the story pretty appropriately, I think.
The best part, it sounds like. Okay, let's do a show.
It's okay.
Stinky nuts. Hold on.
Stinky nuts.
Cursor was in the wrong place.
It's hot and humid here enough that stinky nuts will happen.
Oh boy.
Not if you have built-in ventilation.
Yeah, no pants.
I was going to say, is that like no pants?
Yeah. No, it's a cracked seam on your pants
There you
below
go.
the fly.
There you go.
The Mark style, the zipper
Yeah.
down Mark
I'm
style.
kind of setting a new trend.
Yeah.
You know, I'm thinking of starting like remove the material and replace it with mesh, so it's not totally open, but you get like some breathability under there.
It's called fishnet, Mark. Fishnet.
No, we call it mesh. We're men. Okay. All right, here we go.
Welcome to the Wood Talk Weekend Show. It's time to unbutton those pants, crack open a fresh grape soda, and let the soothing sounds of Mark, Shannon, and Matt caress your ear holes.
Okie dokie, it is Wood Talk number 396 for July 7th, 2017. On today's show, well, it's the weekend. We should say that, right? It's the weekend!
Happy weekend!
Ooh, weekend.
Hooray and stuff. So, this is something that kind of is on my mind a lot as I produce content and try to hit certain target audiences. And I think you guys probably are in the same boat here.
You're always on my mind.
Yes, some of that. More
You're
of that,
always
please.
on my mind.
Have you ever gotten the comment on, whatever, Facebook, YouTube, where someone says, this is fine, but what about the average woodworker? Or this tool is nice, but way too expensive for the average woodworker. So
What? Never.
You never got that? Okay. I didn't think
This
so.
is news.
So what I want to talk about a little bit today is who is the average woodworker? And I put that in air quotes. Who is the average woodworker? Because I think when these people are writing this, what they're actually saying is that is not appropriate for me. And they just assume everyone is like them. So, and I get that a lot where someone's like, in fact, it just today, as even after I chose this topic, which was based on a question from Steve, which I'll read in a second, but in the woodworker community on Facebook, someone had, I guess they were commenting about the woodworking shows on television, that they say, hey, you can do this in a weekend. And the guy's gripe was, yeah, I can't do that in a weekend. Maybe if I had those tools, which if you listen to our intros, we've got one that actually says that we could build that too if we had those tools. But that's kind of where it comes from, this mentality that I don't have those tools and they're somehow slighting woodworkers who don't have the tools or who don't have the means to do those same things in that period of time. And it's just an interesting mindset. So let's, kind of kick this around a little bit. Would you agree that when people are saying this is not appropriate for the average woodworker, that they're really just talking about themselves and assuming everyone is like them? I mean, would you say that the average woodworker, and going back to this guy's comments on Facebook, that the average woodworker only shops at Harbor Freight?
No. Absolutely not.
Yeah, and we're talking about probably average hobbyist woodworker, because I think that's where he was coming from. All my tools are from Harbor Freight, and I'm like, buddy, I don't think that is the average, right? That's your situation, and sure, there are many who share your situation, but is it fair to criticize the people making this content because they don't fit your particular situation? And it just seemed like an unfair criticism to level at a particular show. So
the only way anybody would make that comment is in some sort of like noble attempt to reach like the masses. And I don't know, there's just nothing noble about a YouTube commenter. So no, I mean, we all think that way. You put yourself in that situation. Could I build this project? Could I do what that guy is showing? And you look around and go, well, I don't have that tool or that tool or that tool. You're a jerk. How dare you? No, everybody is thinking in terms of themselves when it comes to that. So yeah, I agree with you totally there. I could look at this from a pure like marketing and metrics perspective because I've got lots of numbers to show this.
Sure.
And,
yeah.
Man, at least in my audience, because I don't think of myself as an average woodworker because of the whole hand tool thing. The strict not using power tools immediately puts me outside the norm.
Yeah,
when it comes,
that's true.
And I do mean that. We're an odd bunch. But if you were to even look at my little niche, my segment of just hand tool users, I definitely think that. I don't even know what the average would be. There are lots of guys that then you get into that segment. It's like, well, it's just the vintage tool users and it's just the guys who buy new tools. And then you've got this, what is the average person? What is the average number of hand saws you should have? I'll say 4. Somebody else will say 9. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it'd
0.
be near impossible. The only average thing we can talk about is maybe age demographics.
Yeah, that you actually have the exact numbers on.
Right, the average woodworker depends on what you're into, It depends on how close the Harbor Freight is to you, whether or not you buy all your tools at Harbor Freight.
Yeah.
I don't even have a Harbor Freight. I've never been inside a Harbor Freight because there's not one anywhere near me.
Because you're an elitist.
Oh man, Shannon, you gotta come over here. We should have like a little meetup. Everyone should just come to my place. We'll go to Harbor Freight. We'll saw some logs. It'll be
I hear
fun.
there's free wood, so yeah.
There's free, especially for you guys.
If you can bring it back,
if you
it's
really want to
yours.
get free wood, anytime you want free wood, Matt, I work at a lumberyard. Anytime you want free wood, you should make a relationship with somebody who works at a lumberyard.
I love that. That's a good tip. Remember that. So, Matt, do you feel like you have a vibe for your average woodworker that follows your stuff?
See, it's kind of interesting because there's so much variability in there.
Yeah.
That normal curve is so big. I can, at least from like the experience that I have talking to people, I can say that I am not the average woodworker in the sense that not like taking away just the shop, not the fact that I cut my own lumber or whatever, but it's the shop that I have, because most average woodworkers don't have a dedicated shop. It's kind of the vibe that I get, and I have a dedicated shop.
They also don't have an aircraft carrier jointer.
They might. If they have one of those sweet like vintage ones.
True.
When you say dedicated shop, you mean like a standalone building?
No, like the cars don't go in the garage.
Yeah, it does one thing and one thing only.
There's no like their kids' bikes aren't in there, or like the strollers or whatever. It's just, that's the shop space. Nothing else intrudes in it. I don't. So in that sense, I'm not the average woodworker because I have that dedicated space. And then you can start looking at maybe the tools I have in there. I don't know. Maybe I don't think I'm too far from the average, I guess. But I certainly am from the sense of, and I get it also depends like where you're at in the woodworking like progression. Like if you're just getting started, then is that like the average getting started person, the average like intermediate kind of person?
Yeah.
Like it depends what kind of projects you want to make, what kind of woodworking you like to do. I mean, if you're just out there like I want to do plywood and construction lumber projects, then yeah, I'm way above average. But if that's the average, then that's the average. I mean, it's so hard to find this.
It seems like
I see this applying is like Norm used to get this all the time.
Yes.
Because of that wide belt sander. That I can okay, now I agree with you because the average woodworker does not have a wide belt sander. The average woodworker does not have commercial sized tools in their shop. That one I'll agree with. And that's kind of where I would stop agreeing once you get beyond that. I mean, look at Mark.
Yes. Hi. I'm Mark. Look at me.
He's commercial sized.
The average woodworker can't build that because we don't have a multi-router. But, you so rarely use it because you're afraid to now because if people make fun of you.
Very good point. Yeah. Well, I think there's definitely silos almost, like verticals of averages. So there's a lump of people who are in this vertical and there's their average. And this goes back to what Matt was just saying. It kind of depends on where you are. But I think as content creators, is it really our problem to worry about that, right? You do what you want to do. Use the tools you like to use, and that audience will find you. And if that audience is smaller, Shannon's in a deep niche, his audience is going to be a little bit smaller, right? And it will represent a different average woodworker than my audience, for instance. If I wanted to do quick weekend projects made out of inexpensive materials and inexpensive tools, and I could pump that content out left and right, I'd probably have bigger numbers, and I would have a different average woodworker as my viewer. So that's the one thing that I think kind of sticks in my craw about this is because people want to impose their own needs and their own situation on someone else. And they're like, oh, well, you're missing the target. It's like, well, actually, maybe I'm hitting the exact target I want to hit, and that just doesn't include you unless you want it to. And I'm okay with that.
I love that.
Well, I mean, that is what the internet has done for us.
Yeah.
To pull out the marketing speak. We've all found our little tribes, and that allows you to let your whatever that tribe, that geek flag fly because you found people like you. And again, going back to my other statement, Norm got that rightfully so because Norm came from an era prior to the internet. And the average woodworker, was a very different thing when there was only Scott Phillips and Norm Abrams and Roy Underhill on TV. They had to apply or appeal to a much, much wider audience. Now, if it's not your jam, move on. There's 700 billion YouTube channels. Maybe not that many. I don't know.
There's quite a few.
I find that comment really interesting, for me at least. The I can't do it because I don't have those tools comment. Chances are you probably can. You just can't do it exactly that way.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different ways to achieve the same thing. And when I was coming up into woodworking from the beginner standpoint, like, I couldn't afford a rabbiting bit for my router, but I could still make a rabbet because I could clamp a straight edge to a board and use a straight bit and just make a rabbet that way. But I didn't have a dado stack on my table saw either, but I couldn't make a rabbet that way or a dado. But I still made projects with dados and rabbits in them.
Well, and there's never been a better time to find alternative ways to do things, right? If you see somebody exercise one particular technique, you could probably Google that same thing and find 20 other ways to do it. You know, rather than belittle the person who showed that one way, you might be able to do just a little bit of research and suddenly you know how to do it 5 different ways. You know, and I don't know, one of the things that kind of, maybe it's just a personality difference, but when I watch stuff, you know, and I watch people do things, I don't actually want to watch someone who does everything exactly the same way I do it or with the exact same caliber of tooling. When I first started, I watched David Marks. Was I anywhere near his level in skill, in material availability, or in possession of various tools? Absolutely not. But there was never a time that I looked at that show and said, you suck, David, with your big jointer. You know, I don't have that. It never even occurred to me to belittle this host because I don't have what he has. Instead, what I did was I looked at it and say, one day I will have that. And one day I will work to be that skillful. And eventually I'll get there. And I'm still waiting to get there.
It will be mine. It will be mine.
But I found it inspirational to look at someone who has, you know, this beautiful, dedicated shop space. And I saw it as a goal that I would eventually achieve myself, as opposed to seeing it as something that somehow puts me down or keeps, stifles me in some way.
David Marks, keeping him down.
Keeping the man down. Well, David Marks is the man. He's the woodworking man, so he's keeping everybody down. So I don't know. Maybe it's just a person's perspective on life that has them approaching things in a certain way where they feel sort of offended in some way by it.
The positive spin to this is, who is the average woodworker? Whoever you are listening to this right now, you are the average woodworker in your little niche.
Congratulations.
So find your niche, find your little tribe, your party of 5, whatever, your friends, find another TV show. Your Dawson's Creek. Nope, we're losing it.
You're going off the rails.
Find your little niche.
Bring it back.
In that niche, you will be amongst your people and you will all be the average woodworkers together. So There you go.
Sounds good. I like that. All right. Well, I guess that's going to be it. Let us know.
Show, kinda.
Let us know where your average lies. I'm curious. What average tribe do you reside in? Very interesting stuff. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody, and we will catch you next time.
Bye-bye.
All right. Excuse me. Okay, save. All right, going to kill the live stream. Thanks, everybody who's been listening and chatting away in the live stream.
Happy 4th, people in the U.S., and happy Tuesday.
Happy 3rd.
Happy 3rd, happy 4th.
Happy whatever.
Happy.
Just be happy. Shut up and be happy.
Don't worry, be happy.
Happy late Canada Day.
There you go.
Happy being average.
Cold